This is going to be everything that you need to know about the 2022 Volkswagen Tiguan. The vehicle that we're featuring here is the SEL R-Line trim. However, don't worry, I'm going to cover all the other trim levels, and I'm going to discuss which trim level is going to work best for most families that are going to be considering this car. All right, starting with what's new for 2022. Well, this is completely refreshed over the 2021 model year. Now for 2023, you don't really see any real changes. They didn't really do anything, just a carryover. But I have to admit, this has a very sleek European design to how it looks. It is very timeless and elegant, and I've always appreciated that with VW design. You can buy a 10-year-old Volkswagen and it still looks new. So that's pretty cool the way they design these cars. I really appreciate that. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section about the exterior looks of this. Of course, being the SEL with the R-Line, 20-inch wheels. Of course, it looks stunning, right? But I'm not going to lie to you guys, for most families, I think just going with the base model S or even the SE is the way to go with the 17 or 18-inch wheels. You're going to get a slightly better ride quality with the smaller wheels, but most importantly, I really like the fact that Volkswagen gives you a lot of good features standard, such as heated front seats and also blind spot monitoring. All of that is standard in the 2022 VW Tiguans. The only things that you really need to add is the 4Motion all-wheel drive. I think that is definitely worth getting. It certainly helps to put the power down when you're flooring it, or even when you have the wheel cocked and you are flooring it in a turn, right? So it does a great job in putting its power down. So 4Motion is definitely worth it. And also the IQ drive assistance might be worth looking into because it's an $895 option for the base model S. I would get it because it does add that semi-autonomous driving capability along with some other safety features. And I'll put the details on the screen here so you can read up on it. But when you go with the SE trim and above, then you just get the IQ drive, I believe, as standard. And once again, I would just add that 4Motion with the SE package or the SE trim as well. I think that's going to be worth it for most families. VW constantly offers these zero down, no money down lease deals, and it becomes very affordable for most people to hop into a brand new VW product that way, and you won't have to worry about reliability or maintenance or anything like that because it's under a lease, right? So I think that's just the best way to pick one of these cars up. I think the warranty is like 4 years, 50,000 miles, and they offer you like 2 years, 20,000 miles of free maintenance. I would take advantage of that, just lease it and dump it and then buy something new in 3 years. I think that's the way to go. Let's go ahead and let's transition over into this driving segment now. All right, so I spent about a week driving this. The most impressive thing about this has to be the handling. This does genuinely handle very well. When you stick it into a corner, there's pretty much no body roll with it. So the good thing is you're not going to upset the occupants in the vehicle, so that's very good. See what I'm saying? When you have the 4Motion and you just floor it in a turn, it just puts down all the power. There's just no drama with it. This is a turbocharged 4-cylinder engine producing 184 horsepower and 221 pounds-feet of torque. Those numbers seem abysmal, but it does have some legitimate torque, so that's good. And that torque comes on pretty instantaneously, so that 4Motion certainly helps in keeping that torque at bay. The other good news is you can use 87 octane regular fuel with this turbocharged engine, so I think that's also a great thing for most families. It's rated to do 21 in the city, 28 on the highway, but I've been able to beat these EPA estimates without even trying, actually. With pretty much every VW/Audi product, I've been able to beat the EPA estimates. Out on the highway, I was getting like 30 mpg. And around town, I get about 20, 21 mpg as well. And this is without even trying. And what do I mean by that? So I'm more of an active driver. I do actively pass people out on the road. I value my time. I don't just drive 10, 15 miles an hour below the speed limit, getting in other people's way. I actually try to get to my destination rather quickly, right? So I'm passing people, and even with that, this thing gets very good fuel economy. If you actually drove it like how most people in the Matrix drive under the speed limit, then you're going to be getting excellent fuel economy. I would probably say like 24, 25 in the city even, and like 32 or 33 even out on the highways. But it's not perfect. This engine is so rattly and unsmooth. If unsmooth is a word, whatever. You get what I'm trying to say. It makes a pretty gross noise. I wish they would just quiet this down. And the Audi cars, the turbo 4-cylinder, it's so quiet and imperceptible. And this, it's just loud for no reason. So I wish they would just quiet this down. I don't want to hear this rattly little 4-cylinder. It's made it to this 8-speed gearbox, and the 8-speed does a pretty decent job in shifting and everything. Occasionally, you might notice a little bit of a judder, you know, when it gets up and goes, but for the most part, it's smooth and it does a good job shifting. So I don't mind the 8-speed transmission. I did mention how great this vehicle handles. In this class of vehicle, this has pretty much one of the best confidence-inspiring driving feels that you're going to be able to get. Again, the stability is fantastic. The center of gravity seems kind of low in this. It weighs around 3,700 to 3,800 pounds, depending on if you get the all-wheel drive or not. But it feels good. It feels planted. Feels reassuring to drive this, and I appreciate that. However, there is one thing to keep in mind. It can be a bit firm over the larger bumps. Over the smaller bumps, it does a surprisingly good job in soaking that up, but the larger bumps, you kind of notice it translate into the cabin a little bit more. It's not like jarring or, you know, obnoxious or anything. You just notice it, and at least you don't feel fatigued. It doesn't make you feel car sick. It doesn't wallow around or anything. I prefer having this slightly more taut feel than having this cloud-like sensation where it almost feels like you're being car sick. For the most part, I appreciate this ride quality, but I do realize this car comes with 20-inch wheels, but I don't even think it's a wheel thing. It's more of a suspension thing. And again, I don't fault this car because it does handle genuinely good, so I don't mind it being slightly stiff. But if you did get the 17 or 18-inch wheels like with the S and the SE packages or the trim levels, you will get a slightly better ride quality even still. So that's another reason why I suggest that. Because the R line, it doesn't add anything, you know, it's just an appearance package at the end of the day. So these same great driving characteristics are going to translate over in the other lesser trim levels, if that makes sense. Floor it here. See that I don't want to hear all that. I want this to be a little bit quieter. So I think that's the main thing that they can improve upon. But other than that, this car is so quiet. There's like really no wind noise with it at all. Even at 75 miles an hour, you just get like a slight hint of wind noise. It's very impressive. It doesn't even utilize double pane glass, and it's still this quiet. I wasn't expecting this to drive this well, because when I drove the Taos and when I drove the Atlas, I wasn't nearly as impressed with those two SUVs like I am with this. This is easily my choice in the VW lineup for a family vehicle or a SUV product, right? Because you can get like you can get the Golf, of course. I love the Golf, but that's so small and that's not going to work out for most families. If it can work out for you, great, because the Golf is truly an excellent product. There's really no compromises with it. Comes with a manual transmission. If you can make do with the smaller car, great, but you know, the main reason why people are considering these VW SUVs is because they are just so massive. We'll touch on that in the interior segment very soon, but I just want to cover one last point. The other great thing about this VW SUV is the safety of it. It is an IIHS top safety pick, so it's a very safe car, so you can be rest assured, put your family in this, you're not going to have any issues. Safety is something I definitely take into consideration, especially with family cars. You want to have a safe car. Well, no matter what car you drive, you want it to be safe, right? Not like a Jeep Wrangler that like flips over in a crash, right? You don't want that. Very safe, very good. With that established, let's go ahead and let's talk about this interior space now, because it's massive. Here in my garage, because there seems to be a game going on at the park, so I can't film there. So we're going to film the interior inside of the garage. All right, let's start out with the door panel, because here we can see the Fender audio system right here. Really not worth it, in my opinion. It does not sound that great. They keep touting that's a 480 watt system, but it's not really worth getting. You have your lock, unlock. You have some kind of faux wood trimming here with a bit of ambient lighting. Very subtle, but I do like it. You have some stitch work here as well on the door panel, and the switches feel very Audi-esque. In fact, I think it's out of an Audi. And you have your mirror controls, your trunk release, and a decent amount of space in the door cards here for a bottle. Down here you have your R scuff plates with a little bit more ambient lighting here. And because this is the SEL trim, you do get memory seats, 3-way memory seats, and that's exclusive to the SEL, which I'm not a huge fan of. But you do have your lumbar support here, and you do have your seat controls here as well. This is the leather seats, black leather seats. It's got some piping, some stitching going on. It's kind of a design that they have integrated into the seat. Very comfortable, so I do appreciate that. There's a look at the steering wheel and the dash. Let's go ahead and climb inside. This is a bespoke R-line steering wheel, leather wrapped. Very good. I do appreciate it. It's got a bit of a flat bottom here as well if you're into that. And here we have the touch capacitive button. So I will turn on the ignition here, push button start. You do have wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, so I think many people will appreciate that. And this is the 8-inch screen. You will get a 6.5-inch infotainment screen if you go with the more base models. We have here a 10.25-inch gauge cluster screen. However, if you went with the base models, I think this will be like an 8-inch gauge cluster screen. Either way, you do get a digital cockpit, even in the base model, so I think many people will indeed like that. I will say it is a little bit cumbersome to use this gauge cluster screen. It's a little bit too minimalistic, if you know what I mean. And kind of sort through the menus here with these buttons on the right hand side of the steering wheel, cycle through the different views. So you have all that to play with. And I'll be honest, I don't really mind the touch haptic feedback buttons that they have going on here. I think Volkswagen did a pretty good job with it. It's very easy to use and understand. I mean, yeah, it's a little bit overkill. They could have just used physical buttons, but it is what it is. You do have your heated and cooled seats as well. Again, this is the fully loaded trim. Keep that in mind. But even standard with the base model, you will get heated front seats at least. They will be cloth seats, which I don't mind, but at least they give you heated seats in the base model, which is a great thing to see. And the infotainment is actually pretty quick to respond. No problems there. The infotainment is easy to understand. That's not really a problem. It's not the most elegant thing to look at, but it gets the job done, and I appreciate it. It's just the gauge cluster that requires a little bit of a learning curve. We have a traditional gear lever knob. Here you have your off-road controls, right? You can just leave this in normal. It's not a big deal. And you can kind of cycle through the sport modes, the eco modes. I just leave it in normal. That's perfectly fine. You do have an electronic parking brake as well. You have a wireless charging pad, 2 USB-C ports, 2 regular size cup holders, and a pretty small amount of space in the center armrest. This center armrest in general is very small, so that's something to note. And you have a little bit more of that wood grain trims here. Rather cavernous glove box, which is a good thing. You have your automatic headlight controls right here, turn signal stock, and you have your wiper stock right here as well. Another thing, I really do like the fact that Volkswagen gives you a lot of the safety features as standard, like the blind spot monitoring. That is standard, and I really appreciate that. And if you go with the SE trim and above, you get that IQ drive system, that semi-autonomous driving feature. You will be getting that, and along with some additional safety features as well. So I would say it's worth paying up for it if you're buying a base model, and if you're not buying a base model, just get the SE. It's about 33 grand, and the S model with the 4Motion that I spec'd out was around 30 grand, I think. So just get the SE. I think that'll be good. And you can also option in the panoramic moonroof with the SE model if you want. I think it's like a $1,200 option, so that might be worth getting for some. I'm not a fan of this kind of plasticky interior, right? It is kind of budget feeling. However, it is pretty well put together, at least. I do appreciate that. This really is the main event, the back seats for sure. I mean, check this. I am 5'11", and I can literally just stretch my legs all the way out. It is quite comical just how much space you have here. And this seat is set to my seat setting at 5'11". Admittedly, I do sit a little bit closer to the steering wheel than most people my size, but regardless, this is an insane amount of space. So I do love that. And you have your own climate control back here with a USB-C port for charging. You have your little 12 volt right there. I wish they would have given you some manual sunshades in the back for kids, but whatever. It is what it is. The seats, they remain comfortable back here as well, just like it is in the front. And you do have two little cup holders here in the center armrest. And of course you can fold down the seats 60-40, but yeah, I mean, this is definitely easily class leading space. I mean, you can sit in the middle, it doesn't matter. This is the biggest highlight and one of the reasons why you buy a VW SUV over the competition, because it simply offers best in class real world space in the front, in the rear, in the trunk, as we're about to see. It's just a massive space. So this is what you really need to be taking advantage of. If you have very large people in your family, this is easily the way to go. No questions asked. A couple of different ways to open up the trunk. You can open it from your key fob if you want, but you just press a button in the back as well. And as you can see, a massive amount of space in the trunk. You have your own spare tire in the back as well, which is great to see. Some storage cubbies here on the side as well, and it's very easy to put these seats down. Just kind of press this lever right here and it'll partially go down, and you can just go in the front, push that back if you need to. But otherwise, I mean, even as is, you have plenty of space right here. You have this little tonneau cover for privacy. You can also remove that as well. But yeah, just massive amounts of space in the trunk. So the second row seats have a lot of space, and so does the trunk. It's just class leading space. That's the main reason why you buy this. And the handling and stuff, of course, that's great. And the looks, the European looks, I do appreciate that as well. But yeah, this is a very practical family car for sure. With that established, let's go ahead and let's wrap this video up. We covered the driving segment, we covered the fuel economy, the interior space. Let's conclude on this review. What do I think about it? Like I said in the beginning, if you can get this at a great lease deal, then I would say go for it. You know, VW does keep offering these zero down money, no money down lease deals. Take advantage of it, because I do think this is a great option in the VW lineup. It's my favorite SUV. I would choose this over the Taos all day long. I think this is maybe $3 or $4 grand more than the Taos. Definitely pay up for it, because yeah, it's $3-4 grand more, but it's a significantly superior car than the Taos. If you need a 3-row, the Atlas is a massive car, but I prefer driving the Tiguan a lot more. I feel like there's less compromises driving the Tiguan. It has the best sorted ride quality for both comfort and for performance driving. I think this does handle extremely well. There's no weirdness with it. With the 4Motion all-wheel drive, it just puts the power down beautifully. You can have the wheel cocked and floored, and you know, it just puts all of its power down. No drama. Again, the only cons, pretty much the loud 4-cylinder engine. You know, I wish they would just quiet that down. A little bit of a plasticky interior space, but it is for the most part very solid, very functional. And I don't even think the touch haptic controls is a huge con in my opinion. That's not a big deal for me. They did a very good job with it. The comfort is great. The ergonomics are all there. It's very quiet in here. Fender audio is not really worth paying up for. It's not really worth getting this SEL fully loaded trim in my opinion. Again, unless you just get it at a very cheap lease. But yeah, very impressive machine. I am quite pleased with it. I enjoyed my time with it, and it's a confidence inspiring, safe vehicle. Good package, good vehicle. If you own one, let me know your thoughts. But thanks again for watching. I'll have the next review on the end screen here, so make sure to check that out, and I will see you there.